Well, hello and welcome to the Wellness by Design podcast. I am Jane Hogan, the wellness engineer, your host. And I'm super excited today because we are talking about values and how it's connected to your health. I know this to be true because I was living a long time not in alignment with my values, and eventually my body told me no more. So
Mm.
I want to introduce Amrit Sandhu. Welcome, Amrit.
Oh, Jane, it is such a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm just delighted. We had such a great conversation when you interviewed me for your
Yeah, we
Inspired
did.
Evolution podcast.
Mhm.
And we're both former engineers who
Recovering
left
engineers.
that engineering world behind, the left brain kind of moving to the right brain. Well, we're pulling it all together now, right?
Mm, mm.
You are so passionate about what you do, and you've got this like infectious laugh and energy, and you've got this little call that like
It's a goal. Yes, I
let's
have this
hear it.
maniacal thing that I do at the beginning of every episode of my podcast. It goes a little, I'll just turn my mic down.
Now,
How it goes at the beginning of every episode.
thank you for that. Doesn't that just like, wake you up? Well, for me, it's 7:30 in the morning in Newfoundland.
There's an element of pep in there
Yeah,
for
for
sure,
sure.
I reckon.
You're in Australia, and so it's late
Mm.
at night for you. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that got us all revved up. So, thank you for youing us,
My pleasure.
and we're just bringing that energy forward. So, tell us a little bit, the
Mm.
audience, a little bit about how you went from being an engineer to what you do now, and what you do now.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, uh, what I do now is under consistent evolution because I'm Mr. Inspired Evolution, right? So that leaves a consistent journey of growth and evolution available to me. What it looks like at the moment is I'm coaching leaders with life coaching, it seems, but we call it leadership coaching because that's just what's easier to sort of stomach for people. But leading into this point for the last 4 years, can I say 4 years? Yeah, 4 years. I've been purpose coaching. And that has then led to a lot of my clients that have been coming up to like finding their purpose. Then they've found their purpose, and now what would you know when you are aligned to your purpose? Things just tumble out of control and happen so much faster. Because you're in alignment, all the sort of obstacles get out of your way, and it really is a pretty magical place to be because you show up with a great deal of passion. And then they've all ended up in some form of leadership roles, and I've continued to coach them. So now purpose coaching has evolved into leadership coaching, but I love to do both. So generally, people come to me when they're transitioning or when they like to say lead from a place of alignment. That's what I do now. I definitely did not always do that. I wish I did always do that. But the thing that I came from was a very successful engineer. I think, touch wood, when I graduated university, graduated top of my class. And I don't say that to boast. I say that because when they told me like there was a vetting process for like who should get that award and who shouldn't, they said, why should we award this to you? And I said, look, there was a point in my journey where I struggled with depression for 6 years prior to graduating university, where I was asked to leave university because my performance was so poor. And if I was to win this award, then it would be a clear demonstrator of how someone with negative mental health performs and how someone with positive mental health performs in the one person, and just the seismic
Beautiful.
difference that mental health can play. And so, in their graciousness, they decided to afford me the award, which, touch wood, I feel very humbled to have received. Um,
Congratulations.
yeah, so graduated, really well, got the best job I possibly could with that, those sort of accolades here in Melbourne, in Australia, which is a great part of the world to grow up in, very fortunate. And yeah, started beating the anvil of engineering. I went into project management fundamentally, and was doing that for about 7 years. And it really, how did I change? It was a lot of pain, if I'm honest. Not the sort of physical pain that you went through on your journey. Obviously, I know your journey intimately. I've had you on my podcast on the Inspired Evolution. But for me, it was emotional. It was emotional and mental pain. Every day going to work, I don't think I'm that much more special than people is usually what I say when I'm sharing this from stage because most people I think have 9 to 5 jobs, and so they have their midlife crisis somewhere in their late 40s, right? I had a 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. job 6 days a week. So I like to joke that I just put in the same amount of hours that people put in before 40 by 30. So I just accelerated that sort of existential crisis. But jokes aside, it was, yeah, it was really, I was feeling like, and for those that are Matrix buffs, pardon me, but for those that aren't, you're not going to get this potentially, but I felt like there's a moment in the second Matrix movie where Morpheus takes Neo back to the machine city, and it's real baseline reality, not plugged into the Matrix. And he shows him what baseline reality actually looks like right now. And the sky is completely scorched. And Morpheus says to Neo, humans are the ones that actually scorch the sky, thinking that if we scorch the sky, there would be no solar energy and the machines wouldn't be able to run. And the machines is, can be synonymous with the corporate entity potentially, if you want to look at it that way, as a metaphor. And Morpheus takes a look around, and Morpheus says, and Neo takes a look around, and Morpheus goes, actually, and if you have a look now, the machines in their infinite wisdoms realize that if we can't get energy from the sun, human beings are an energy source unto themselves. And now human beings are grown and harvested, and so that they don't realize that this is happening to them, they plug them into the Matrix, so they feel like they're living in reality. Super stark and super intense, right? But that being harvested for the energy piece felt very real. It was like all I had time to do was sleep and eat and come back to work. Barely could I make it to the gym. Barely could I do anything like yoga or anything that was health oriented, because 6 to 6 was a requirement. Sometimes I was coming home at 8:30, and by the time you get home, get to bed, wake up, do it all over again, it was just, I started feeling like I had no Amrit, left.
Just an
So
existence, not really a life.
yeah, and there was a lot of emotional frustration that I just felt like I was always made for a little bit more or something a little bit different. Even now, I look back with a sense of maturity because it's been 6 years since I've pivoted. And I realized actually that it wasn't a bad job. It was just that role wasn't meant to be served by Amrit. It was a bad job for Amrit, and Amrit was a bad bloke for that job. Both
Right, I
are
get it.
equally true. But yeah, there's someone out there that job's perfect for, but it wasn't for me.
Mm. Oh gosh, I can so relate to that. I I had I didn't have depression, but I had that anguish like and that feeling like this isn't right, but I couldn't leave. And I mean, I didn't have the huge long hours like you had. So I had this thing feeling like, well, I should be happy. This is
Yeah.
a great job. I should
And
be
it's a
happy.
palpable feeling, isn't it, though? It's palpable. Like it's
Yeah.
actually like it's a feeling, but it's something you carry like baggage
Yeah. So
around and you just carry it around.
I had to
Yeah.
get hit with like the big 2x4.
Yeah,
But
touch
yeah,
wood.
did you feel like when you made that pivot or before you made that pivot, did you kind of have that knowing in you that like this, I absolutely something else has to be happening in my life, not this. Did you have that like deep
Yeah.
down knowing?
So it's interesting how it all came because somehow in my heart, I've always had a message, which is your health is your purpose and your purpose is your health.
Hmm.
And I don't know where it landed from. I don't know where it came from, but it's been there, right? It's always been this kind of knowing. And it's just something that I've known. But can you imagine carrying that as a piece of awareness within your awareness and then knowing that you're not on purpose? And then you're like, if you're unconscious about the fact that your health is tied to your purpose, and it somewhat makes it easier because at least you're not consciously licking your wounds
Yeah.
every day, as opposed to like, oh my God, like I don't think I'm made for this, but yeah, I don't really know how else. And that was the thing. Education indoctrinated me, my social environment indoctrinated me. And I'm not playing the victim here. Like I went along with it. But a lot of how society is wired and engineered encouraged me to become the individual that I did, and also fed me the narrative, which I bought into, that this was my opportunity.
Yeah.
This was my opportunity. Little did I know that actually when I unplug, the the biggest problem I'm going to have is like, oh crap, which opportunity to choose? Because it's like a tidal wave out here of so many things you could do outside of that first thing that you try and get into. But we're encouraged to feel like that career path that we've committed so much to is such a big part of it. But coming to the heart of your question and response, there was a moment I clearly remember, and I share this because it was just weird. Like I was sitting on a construction site eating my acai bowl for lunch. Mind you, you'd laugh at this, Jane. So I'm eating an acai bowl, right? Hard hat, steel cap boots, high vis vest, typical construction worker like outfit, as the engineer, eating an acai bowl. The guy next to me is eating a pie. The guy next to him is eating a sandwich. The guy next to him a pasty, hot dog. Everyone's eating these like faster kind of foods, and I'm sitting here trying to eat an acai bowl. And I look back now, I was like, which one, which one is the odd one out? Like you can sort of just, yeah.
I can see
So
that. I can totally
yeah,
see it. And then, they're probably saying, "What are you eating that for?"
yeah. What is? Oh,
Rabbit
yeah.
food.
I used to get a bit of that. So I pulled out my phone and I googled the word courage. And in that moment, I was just like, it was a moment of divine intervention, call it what you will. And I had this realization, this was the knowing you were talking about, right? And I googled the word courage, and the whole life up to that point, up until like 30, I thought fearlessness and courage were the exact same thing. Like I didn't think there was any difference. I thought you were fearless and you were courageous. But here I am, for no reason or some reason, divine reason, reading the definition of courage, and it basically goes along the lines of courage is not having fear. Courage is absolutely having fear and doing it in the face of that fear anyway.
Ah,
So I'm like, oh
I've
my
got
God, these two
goosebumps.
things are like polar opposites. Yeah, right? It's like these two things are polar opposites in some ways. And then I realized it's a prerequisite to have fear in order to be courageous.
Mm.
And as soon as that realization precipitated, the very next thought was like, oh, what is my biggest fear? These are the sort of games Emmett plays in his head, guys. Welcome to the party. what's my biggest fear? And it was literally like, without even the knowing, was what does life look like outside of this white picket fenced lane that I'm riding along? And what is that lane? It's like, get good grades in primary school, get good grades in high school, go to university, get a good degree, go get a job, then have a family, raise some kids, nice big house with a white picket fence, hopefully a red Ferrari, then you can retire. Now you live your life at 65. Yay!
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, like surely I don't have to wait until I can't even like experience my body fully to actually live my life fully. Like that, even just that as an awareness, we all have that. It's like, surely that doesn't have to be the way, but that is the way it's all wired and structured together. So that was a massive like realization, that moment, that my biggest fear is what happens off the beaten path, like out here.
Yeah.
Like what happens if I go off it? And I took a look around and I found coaches, speakers, entrepreneurs, people setting up their own businesses, all these different people doing things on their own terms. And I was like these guys are creative and they're living life like on their own terms. They're doing something that they enjoy and they believe in, and they're able to put it out in the world and it sustains them. That feels really meaningful, but I have no idea how to do that.
Right.
And so that was the realization, is like the knowing was like, what is your biggest fear? I started to know what my biggest fear was. And then humbly, I had some coaching along the way from some really good mentors and friends. And yeah, I asked them, like, what do you think I should do? And the story continues from there to pivot.
Wow. You know, I wonder how many people, because there are a lot of people listening to this, have chronic pain or chronic conditions that, again, like kind of we've been conditioned to think, well, they're normal as you get older, or it's just, this is normal, or take a pill for that. And I wonder how many people, well, maybe they'll change their mind after listening to this, that the source of the chronic condition could be that you're not living on purpose or following your values.
It's
So,
a little bit
yeah.
crazy, yeah. Like, sorry to butt in, but I feel like like one of the things I'm like people find me a bit triggering is I like to say that stress, a healthy amount of stress. There are extremes, obviously, beyond the midway point, let's call it that. But up to about the midway point, stress is your ally.
Mhm.
Stress is a feedback mechanism in your life. It's free life coaching. You just don't listen. I don't listen. I didn't listen. I just whammed down another coffee and up went the nervous. Like you had this amazing guided meditation for our nervous system, which we actually released on the Inspired Evolution as its own independent meditation, and people are tuning into it. They're loving it. So, but how important is the nervous system and stress? We just get so like it's an opportunity for us to listen. And stress, as we know, compounded then ends up in these chronic situations that you're describing. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, no, not at all. That's a great point. So stress, initially it may not be showing up as pain, although it may be showing up as pain,
Mm,
but it's an indicator, right? It's like you said, it's a feedback mechanism.
mm.
And so we need to listen to, well, if we don't listen to it, we can cover it up, sure. We can ignore it. We can,
The signal gets louder over
distract.
time. The signal gets louder over time, right?
Exactly, exactly. And so, why not address it sooner?
If you
Um,
can.
so when we're talking about addressing what's off in your life, so you're getting this feedback of pain or stress or
Yeah.
angsty kind of feeling,
Mm.
or feeling that you should be doing something else. How do you help people address that? Like identify what is
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you for asking that. And it happens at the beginning of every coaching session. So everyone's usually going through a transition and they jump on a call with them and they're like, I'm going through this massive transition and I know this is what's up. Not like I've got three opportunities or two opportunities or something's shifting and I don't even know where I'm going, but I know I need to shift. And it's like they're looking for someone to help them pick the opportunity. And the first place we start is I'll talk to them about their opportunities for sure. Then it's like, okay, and now what are your values? And everyone goes, huh? And it's like, what are your values? And oftentimes people can't answer that. And I don't judge you for it. I couldn't answer that. But when we start thinking about alignment and living in alignment, and that place being the most flow that's available to us and the least amount of stress available to us by just nature's define, um, what are your values? What do you value from life? What do you value in life? What value do others get from you, from being here in life? It works on every single plane and dimension that you want to unpack it for your life. Now, if we look back, or even if we just take me as an example now, this will make it really clear for people what I mean by values. So, Amrit's values, I'm super clear, are connection, contribution, and celebration. Yeah, it's handy that all three of them start with
Three
C's.
C's.
Part of me, it just happened that way. It works for alliteration. It just happened. Your values do not all have to start with the same letter. Okay, that rarely happens. But mine's a connection, contribution, and celebration. So if we have a quick look and audit my life now, makes a lot of sense. I'm podcasting, YouTubing. Do I get to connect with people? I'm connecting with people through this podcast on the other side of the planet. Like, where is Newfoundland? Like, dude, Canada, like, what is going on? Heaps of connection, right? Contribution. Hopefully, this conversation is adding some value to your life. I hope so. And celebration. Hopefully, you live life a little bit richer and fuller because of what you've gleaned from here. And, we're connected, and that leaves my life a little bit fuller and richer because I've had an impact and I get to feel like I matter. So in there, those three values of mine are met in podcasting. Coaching is the same. Connection's deeper. It's more intimate in many ways. Contribution, absolutely, that's deeper. Celebration, that's richer as well. Speaking again, speaking to a wider audience, connection, contribution, celebration. So those three things make a lot of sense. It's like, yep, I should do them. Yeah.
Right.
Let's have a quick look back at where I was as an engineer. Now, building high-rise towers for people, connection. Hello, crickets, right? Contribution. Maybe I was building people homes. I was building apartment towers. I had that sense of like, well, at least I'm building people home, right? I came from a migrant family. A lot of migrants require apartments in the city to, as their first stepping stone. They're moving in. This is a home for them. It's an incredible opportunity. Good contribution. Celebration. Again, nothing. So I was meeting one of my top three values, right? Maybe half. I would, if I was honest with you, it was not the kind of contribution that I really wanted to have, which is like what we're having here today. So now it becomes really obvious that, I was out of alignment. What does out of alignment mean? I wasn't living true to my values, right? And that's a really great place to start. When we go into coaching, there's a whole, we build out a vision, we understand your story, where you've been in the past, we do a whole bunch of stuff. But the first place to start to get into alignment is, what are your values, right? And from that
Beautiful.
place, we can start to even audit. It's like, hey, now you've got 3 opportunities that you brought to me in a coaching call, and you're feeling stressed, you want to change, you want to pivot. Let's audit whatever's coming your way by those 3 values that you've got, and which one of them, which really fills your cup by what you feel you value and the world values you for. And then all of a sudden it's like, I'm left with one opportunity, and that's the one I should go pursue. And you will go pursue it, and it will feel flowy, and it'll be incredible because you're showing up your fullest self, not, oh, I'm one person at home and one person at work. Those boundaries have completely dissolved. I don't know if everyone can feel that, but those boundaries have completely dissolved now. Yet there is some sort of old school last little clinging of like, oh, professionalism. It's like, bring your professional self to work, but leave your home self at home. And dude, no, not anymore. I'm sorry. Bring your full self to work. Do the work you enjoy and you were put here to do, in alignment with your values.
I love that. The values are like the litmus test, right? For anything, any opportunities that are coming along. Now, you've got 3 values. Is it always 3, or do you get people to kind of pick their top 3? And how do you
It's
get them
not,
to do that?
yeah, it's definitely not always 3. But I think because I'm the guy that's teaching it and I've got 3, people end up with 3 core values. There's something about that number that just sort of fits. It helps. But 90% of people, I would say, end up with 3 just because of the hand feeding the medicine spoon, I feel. But the worst thing that could happen is you walk away from this episode thinking, hey, I'm also connection, contribution, celebrate. Sure, some part of you is connecting to this conversation well. Maybe connection is one of your values, right? I'm not saying it's not, but you're probably going to use a different word, right? Connection means a lot of things to me, right? It means connection to people. It also means connection to what I think is God, connection to a whole bunch of things, right? It's a very massive word for me in my world. So it's unlikely that it's going to mean the exact same thing to you. But when we generally start, we start in a really easy place. And there actually is a way for people to do this online, which is inspiredevolution.com/values, right? So if you can find your way there in 20 minutes, it'll run you through basically what I'm going to quickly run you through. There's a document there which basically has 5 pages worth of words just listed out there, from abundance all the way through to zest in alphabetical order, right? And it could be anything, whether it's wealth, whether it's prosperity, whether it's joy, whether it's happiness, whether it's justice, whether it's freedom, whether it's love, and everything's listed there. Probably not everything in the whole world, but I've done my best and I've collated over years. Have a look at it and feel whatever words pop out at you, right? And when you have a look, you'll get this sort of, these words create a little energy. If you have to think about it, it's not you, right? It's your head's going into it. Just what speaks to your heart. Go through, highlight every single word that matters to you. And then from there, the next step, once you've done that, right? Sorry, little side note wants to come in. I don't know where it's coming from, but if you see it in somebody else, it's in you as well, by the way, guys. So if I see Jane, right, I may see vitality, right? It's what I see when I see Jane. Yeah. Now, someone else may see Jane and see beauty. So is Jane beauty or is Jane vitality? Well, the truth is Amrit's vitality and this other person is beauty, and Jane's just mirroring back both of those truths back at them. So what you see in others, you also have. Little side note while you're doing this exercise. So first part,
that's another little opportunity to figure out what your
collect
values
in
are.
some of those things. Yeah. And once you've got those, you collect the like terms, which is step 2. So I might have wealth, I might have prosperity, and I might have abundance. And all 3 of those things mean the same thing to me, right? And I collect them. And this is where everybody starts to look different, right? Because celebration for me actually means health, but it doesn't mean health to most of you. For a lot of people tuning in, health means let's go out, let's get party, and let's get drunk. Right. And alcohol to me is not synonymous with health. That's just the paradigm that I've created for myself. It doesn't have to be your paradigm. But celebration for me is like when you're dancing, you're healthy. Right. That's how I see it. And that's so when I say celebration is health, and they'll be like, what? I kind of get it, but maybe not,
Right.
So
Someone else
up
is
to you
drinking champagne on a cruise ship or something.
Exactly, right? So collate your like terms for what they mean for you. And step three is to give those buckets that you've now created a title from within those bucketed terms, right? And if you put those bucketed items on a list, those title terms, you've now got your first pass of your values. It's as simple as that.
Love
Might be
it.
abundance, might be joy, and that's it. And then order them, and you've got your first three values. It's that simple.
Will we have that link there so people can go find that and do that?
Mhm.
It's a great exercise to figure out the values. And I love what you said about like don't get in your head about it, just like
Yeah.
kind of go with the first thing. How do you stop people from being in their head
Time,
about it?
time pressure, time pressure. Literally, the whole
Ah,
exercise, the first part should take you 3 minutes, right? Tops 3 minutes. It's like go through the list and just go bing, bing, bing. Just highlight the word that matters to you. Bang, bang, bang. If you pause, move on, right? Because the beauty is, you know now from having listened to me run you through it, you're going to collect like terms anyway. One of the other terms will make it into that bucket if that term was meant to be in there, right?
okay.
So if you were meant to get abundance and prosperity and you didn't get wealth, does it really matter that you left wealth behind when you've got prosperity? Not really, right?
Mm.
You will catch it. The idea is to do it super fast, like do it as quick as you can and just blitz through it. And honestly, that's one of the hardest things I find myself. I guess obviously because I've drunk the Kool-Aid, I know how important it is to know your values. It's like a 20-minute exercise tops for those that are tuning in, and so many people won't take the action to just go and check it out and see what their values are. Yet your whole life will be so much easier once you know your values, decision
Let's
making, everything. Yeah. So
Yeah, let's
bring it back.
encourage people to go do it. And then when you've done it, come back and like give a thumbs up or like a celebration or whatever, something in the comments so that we know that you've
Yeah.
done it. So,
What are your
and
three values? Tell us. Tell
tell
us.
us your
Tell
top
us.
three values. There you go.
Yeah.
Uh, so here's the thing that I find I've done some of these and not your values exercise, which I am
Mm.
going to go do. I've
Yay.
done some before and I feel like I want to check everything.
Yeah.
Do you get people that are doing that?
That's why I love this process. And obviously, I'm biased towards my process. But I've coached over 250 people one on one now. So I think I know a little bit about something. I just, at this point, if I didn't know, there'd be something wrong. So yeah, it works really well because you can check everything, right? And there's 5 pages worth of stuff, and you're going to get to some words and you'll be like, no, that's not me. Some people aren't hungry for power. Why would you circle it if it doesn't matter to you, right?
Right.
And some people aren't hungry for control, right? And so why would you circle if it doesn't matter to you? So there are like 5 pages worth of words. It's selecting whatever matters to you. And if you select 2/3 of the document, that's cool because the very next thing you're going to do is collect them into their like terms, right? So you might just have buckets of like 15 terms pulled in together at a time. And even if you highlighted 80 things and 2 buckets of 15, you end up with like only 7 or 8 buckets in the end anyway. So then you still come down to a list of 7 or 8. So highlight everything. Go gangbusters. If you feel like it speaks to you, it speaks to you. Go. Don't apologize for who you are. Please add it in. But then we'll refine it. And that's the key, refining it. And it's very simple. Collect the like terms, give it a title.
Mm, beautiful. And so you said you've coached over 250 people one-on-one now, and you've gone through this exercise. I know you're not so much about helping people maybe get out of pain like I am, but I'm sure you've had some people come to you with health conditions. And
Mm.
how have you seen that their health change as a result of living in alignment with their values?
That's an interesting question. Okay. So I'm coaching 2 people at present. Touch wood. Sorry, I'm just trying to moderate because there's client coach privilege. So I'm just trying to moderate what I share. Um, let's just use one of them as an example. Could potentially be transitioning over to the other side right now, as we speak, right? And touch wood, as a coach, it's a real, especially as a young man, as a coach, I'm just going to go as far as even just admitting that it's a real honor and a blessing to be able to, like, yeah, just be there by someone's side as they're doing, as they're navigating something like that. I'm learning so much about what is most precious about life. And anyway, I could talk about that alone in its own podcast. But your question was about health. So generally, what I find is with that lens, eventually we're going to recognize that we are all mortal,
Mm-hmm.
right? Touch wood. And I know that's really sobering. It's really sobering. But one of my favorite philosophers is Alan Watts. And he says this so well. He says, the greatest fertilizer for your life is the contemplation of death,
So true.
right?
Yeah.
Because from that point, you go, whoa, like I've only got a limited amount of time. There's a book called, I think it's 4,000 Weeks. Yeah, somehow when you put it in weeks, it becomes really, your whole nervous system tightens up. And so apologies for doing that to you, but it did it to me. So I'm just handing it on. Sorry. But it's called 4,000 Weeks, right? And what are you doing with those weeks? There are people that I know that are stoic as, and they've got the calendar on the wall and they're literally marking off 4,000 weeks. And that's like, phew, it's intense.
Yeah.
It's intense, right? And so the key thing in there is if you're only here for a limited time and you are mortal, right? The thing potentially is, what did you do with your time here?
Mm-hmm.
So you may, in the early stages, like I feel like, touch wood, I can probably say that me getting into alignment with my purpose and my values and living life closer to my purpose, in alignment with my purpose, I'm gonna live a fuller, richer, happier life. Touch wood. And I can feel I'm happy. I'm happier to be around for my friends, I'm just happier in general.
Mm-hmm.
Why? And happiness, when you look at like countries like Bhutan, like there's the happiness index. Like people that are happier live longer, like, and they've got strong community connections because they're happy. People are happy to be around them because they're happier and they're infectious with that happiness. Touch wood, they end up having longer relationships and they live longer. It's
It goes
not rocket
together.
science. It's
Yeah,
not
that
rocket science, right?
that
So,
feeling of being in alignment and being happy, like that is a visceral vibration in the body.
hmm,
And so it's a healing vibration, right? It's on,
there's there's
that
something
love
there.
side, away from the fear side, right? It's on that
Yeah.
love side. So you're creating that healing vibration. So it totally makes sense to me.
And that's the early days, right? But someone that's like some of the people that I'm coaching now, they can easily look back and go, oh, this is where I wasn't in alignment. This is where I wasn't in alignment. And I'm so glad, at least for this last little time, I've been in alignment and I've been doing X, Y, and Z, and I've enjoyed X, Y, and Z and I gave myself to that. At least I can't regret these last 3 years.
Right.
And you hear something like that, and it's like, you start to get inquisitive about what's important, and it is always connections. Touch wood,
Mm,
it's always connections, is what
yeah.
I found. Obviously, I'm biased, so I'm probably coaching the people that have connection somewhere in their value system because that's who I am. So that's the kind of people we attract, right?
Right.
Um, but yeah, it's profound. So what you will find, to like succinctly answer your question, is it may navigate your journey smoother at the beginning, especially if you adopt a life in alignment with your values. And I truly believe it does, but that may just be my belief system. But for those that I've groundedly like towards the latter parts of life and looked back, they're much more grateful for the parts where they have lived in alignment than when they haven't.
Mhm.
And so, when you look at it from that lens, it probably may be the most important thing that you do
Mhm.
so that you don't have to look back with regret.
Interesting what you said there
Touch
about like reflecting or thinking about our mortality and,
wood.
what would we say at the end of our life? There's a book by an Australian nurse. It's like the top 10 regrets of the dying or the regrets of the dying.
Ah,
Yeah, have you heard of this book?
no, but I think it's worth reading already
I,
just by the title. Touch
Yeah,
wood.
I don't, and I may not have got it exactly right, and I don't know the
Yeah.
author's name, but I've heard about this book several times, and I think about that like if we're going to have these regrets, if most people have these regrets on their deathbed, like why not deal with that early on so that you can
Mm.
then live the life, without regrets at the end. I used to do this exercise for a while, even though I was teaching engineering. I did this, I taught this course about real human relations, industrial relations, and I used
Mm.
to get them to do this exercise on writing their obituary,
Mm.
which was kind of interesting. It seemed kind of morbid, but I think it kind of it does make you reflect on, and it makes you understand what what's important to you, right?
Mm.
So it's a that's another little exercise that maybe makes you clear on what you would want your obituary to be like at the
Yeah.
end of your life, right? And then are you living, like, is that, are you living in a way that's taking you to that? So yeah,
Yeah. Sorry, I'm getting all these emotions in my body. I've got a very dear friend who ran a men's boot camp, and we went along and did that exercise. He made us write our um our obituary the way it would be written now,
yes.
version one, and version two was the way you would want it to be read,
Oh, I love that.
right? Um, and then the next morning that we did that like after dinner one night, and the next morning he woke us up at like the crack of dawn, like in Australia it's like 4 a.m. So he took us out and he took us to the beach, and he had these like pre-marked graves dug, and he said, "Get in there." So we all got in there, and he started packing in the dirt on us. And the first part, you're okay. You're like, especially if you're a meditator like myself, you're like breathing. You're like, I can do this. It's okay. Mind over body, mind over matter. Just breathe. Just packing in dirt. It's all good. And then he keeps packing in the dirt, and it starts to sit on your chest, and it starts to get really heavy, really heavy, and you can't breathe no more. And then you start to get into this, oh shit, like this is actually constricting my, sort of part of my French, but constricting my breathing. And then he's reading your obituary to you, right? The one that, not the one you wish it was read, the one that gets read now. And
Right.
you viscerally got in the back of your mind what you wish was being read. And you realize you're going to return to the sand and the dirt one day. And it was one of the most transformative experiences of my life. Actually, it was that experience when I came home from that I did my first ever Facebook Live. And I know that sounds so like lame. It was like, how does that have anything to do with anything Facebook Live? But it was, I always had something to say. I felt, touch wood, you know. And it's ironic because I know that those that speak know nothing, and those that know don't say anything. So I'm on a journey, inspired evolution. Pardon me for that. But yeah, and that was the first Facebook Live that then gave birth to, I know in my bones, the podcast, which then gave birth to the YouTube channel, which then gave birth to the coaching and the public speaking. And it all started with that realization that you shared. It's a beautiful exercise, Jane. I can't, yeah, I love
Wow,
that you've
that
got that as part of
so
your arsenal.
powerful. So powerful. I love the two of them at the same time. Oh my gosh. Really good. Okay. Yeah, I think there's something about, I feel like did the same thing, right? I started, okay, I just got to do a Facebook Live. I just got to speak. If that's what I'm
Yeah.
here for, I have to tell people that's how I'm going to serve. And
Mm,
again, the same thing. It led to the podcast, YouTube channel, and all of that because, yeah, I think speaking about it and helping people hear it, helping people understand that there
mhm,
is a path to follow, that they can find their path, and then that is a way out of the pain and the suffering, right?
mm.
Uh, to understand that we have this, we're here to experience, and we have, I mean, we could get into the metaphysics of it all and how,
Mm.
we really have all the resources available to us. We just block them.
Well, I'd
Um,
love to ask you a quick question.
yeah.
Sorry, but that moment that you went, did your first live, do you remember it? I bet you do, but do you remember it and how you felt on the other side of just having done it? Like once you turned it off?
Yeah, I think the when I think back to that, it's like it was the bravery and
Uh,
actually very proud of myself. Like, okay,
uh,
you did it. The first one's done.
yeah,
It's going to get easier from here on,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
I remember it, and I wonder if you remember it similarly. Like there was this, I did it, and then on the other side of it, there was like this massive exhale, like,
Yeah.
oh.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like I just did something that was nuts, but at the same time, it was, oh, that felt like I finally put my skin back on my body in some way, you know? It was, yeah. And then I feel like that as a little microcosm of an example is what keeps happening as we make those decisions that are in alignment with who we are.
Hmm.
And those moments show up, and the voice of our intuition is so quiet. It's like you can barely hear
Yeah.
it.
Subtle, subtle.
Share that thought, share it. And the head's like, nah, man, come on. Last time you did that, someone said something about it. And then, no, 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 I don't want to do that. And no, 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 that's okay. There's plenty of people touting that message. I don't need to do it. No, 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 it's okay. It's all good. And your head just has this really loud voice that just takes over. But our intuition, like in those
Hmm.
moments,
And coming
goodness.
back to what you talked about earlier with
Mm,
courage, and fear, right? I mean, there's
mm,
fear in doing it, but the way we overcome fear is to take action, right? Action
mm.
is the antidote to fear. So we just keep doing it, right? We just keep taking another step, like having this conversation today and then
Touch
reaching out
wood.
to the next person and doing this, just keep on doing it. And
Mm,
um, it's fun and exciting and feels well on purpose, right? Purpose for you,
mm.
purpose for me. So good for us to to face our fears and do it anyway. For me, the speaking, I mean, I when I was little, I stuttered. I really
Mm.
didn't feel comfortable speaking. And I remember going to like public meetings and I would like I want to say something and then I would like I would never say anything. I was just
Withdraw,
yeah,
right?
just
Yeah.
too shaky. And so
Mm,
yeah, I mean, and I'm not, most people are probably like that, right? So to really to put ourselves out there is truly an act of bravery and courage. And so it's good that we're doing it because it does feel on purpose, right?
mm.
Feels on
It
purpose
really
for you and
does.
on
Really
purpose for me.
does. And one of the
Amrit,
other things, oh,
oh
sorry, go
yeah,
on.
go
Yeah,
ahead,
please.
go
I could
ahead.
talk to you forever. I could talk to you forever.
No,
I
let's
was
hear
just
what you
going to
got to
say
say.
one of the other things that I like, someone else I was coaching recently, she just quit her job as like like as a senior pharmacist. And she was like, oh, I'm feeling bad about like one, like this, because I coach every fortnight with my clients. And so one fortnight, she's like, I feel really bad for it now that I've made my decision for everybody that I left behind because she kind of felt like her workplace was somewhat toxic. It's okay. I feel okay sharing this with you because you're never going to know who she is. And then the week later, someone that she really cared about at work actually handed in their resignation too. And so you just never know what you showing up really does for those around you,
Right, right.
right? So yeah, touch wood, like, you and I doing this, touch wood, it's pretty kooky, it's pretty harebrained. Like I probably felt, I don't know if you felt this, I was like, who's gonna listen? What? Okay, let's just try. It feels right, it feels fun, it feels good as you described. Let's just go along and see what happens. And
And, one person, I start off, if I just help one person, and of course it's been many more now,
same
right?
boat,
But
same
initially it was
boat.
just one
Yeah.
person. And and every day it's like, can I help someone today? How can I help
Mm.
someone today? And so that kind of keeps you going, just thinking about that one person that needs to hear it. So yeah, I really love that. Um, Amrit, this podcast is all about just wellness by design. It's like living,
Yeah.
right? Living intentionally.
Hmm.
And by living intentionally, we can begin to create a healing state in the body. So, what would you suggest to someone that like what is the one baby step they could take today to begin initiating healing in their body?
Having worked with a lot of people, mm, it's going to be the most annoying thing you hear come out of my mouth. And that's saying a lot because you've listened to me this one. Sorry, I'll park my humor for a sec. Acceptance is usually the hardest place to start, but it's usually the first place you usually need to begin with something. Um, Now, you can argue, and I will argue this because I'm a meditation teacher, that in order to accept something, you firstly need to be aware of it. So you need to bring awareness to it. So that can be argued. Um, but if it's in your field and awareness of healing, you're probably already aware of it. And the next step is usually acceptance. And then from there, you can start to work towards it. I'm conscious that the ideal answer to have given would have been, hey, like, find your values, live in alignment to them, see where you're out of it. That's where you're feeling friction in your life on a metaphysical plane, and come back into alignment and things will smooth out. But before you do all of that, you probably got to try and accept a little bit around where you're at as the very next
Mm.
post.
I really love that answer, and I love how you everybody's different, right? What one
Mm.
person needs to accept is different from another person. But we have that wisdom within us. So if there's something niggling at you, then right?
Mm.
You know what this is. The you
Mhm.
people that are listening or watching.
Mm.
Really beautiful. I want to say too, before we close out, like we've been talking about how both of us left our careers, and we're not saying that anyone you'd have to leave your career. That may be
There
what you
should be a
need to do.
massive fat asterisk on this episode.
Yeah, but it
Disclaimer.
might be talking
Yeah.
about acceptance. It might be like,
Mm.
how can I accept, like, or recognize what's triggering me in this situation, and can I respond to it in a different way, or what is this revealing about me, right? And so it may be revealing that you're not living in alignment with your values. It may be just revealing that um you've got a subconscious belief that's
Mhm.
not serving you. So everyone doesn't have to go out and quit their jobs. We'll
Yeah, you
just say
don't.
that.
Yeah, please do not take this episode as your marching orders for 2 weeks' notice. And
Yeah,
and I know I'm conscious that we're wrapping things up, but for some people, they continue doing what they're doing once they've figured out their three values. They find that actually my job serves two of my three values, but
right,
this other one means a lot to me, and actually my hobby gives me that, and my job allows to pay for my hobby really well.
right.
So actually things are good, but I just need to spend more time doing my hobby on the side. And now you're spending more time but you're more fulfilled. So there's
Yeah.
plenty of different scenarios that this can map out into. So please don't, yeah, Jane, thank you. Thank you for flagging that.
And
Yeah.
it might just be the recognition of it, right? Noticing and feeling the gratitude,
Mm,
how this is providing me with some of these values that are so important to me.
mm.
Beautiful. Okay, Amrit, where's the best place for people to find you online?
Sure. Inspiredevolution.com is the website for all things Inspired Evolution. Amrit.coach is the website for all things coaching. The place I generally recommend people go check us out though is youtube.com/inspired evolution. If you can make your way to the YouTube channel, we are releasing multiple videos. It's almost a video a day now. There's a lot going on, but a podcast comes out every week. There's insights from coaching coming out every Thursday, podcast on Monday, and then we do shorter content that sort of emerges from those two, which are snackable bits of content that get out from there as well. But ultimately, the whole idea is helping you live a life that you love, that really you chose, that matters to you. At the heart of it, it's all about love and freedom, which I know sounds super cheesy, but it is possible. So that's the YouTube channel in a nutshell. And I do hope some of you tuning in, some of you that are the sort of hardcore warriors, will go a little bit deeper and go inspiredevolution.com/values and come back to us and tell us what your values are, man. I
Mm,
really want to know who you are and what you're about. They are the pillars of the temple that is you. The energy of your life flows through there. Who are you? What do you stand
beautiful.
for? Mm.
Beautiful. And we'll have all of those links in the show notes. Amrit, I just love your spirit and your energy. I
Thanks,
love
mate.
I love what you're putting out in the world. And I'm just really grateful for you. Grateful that you left your work career and following your values, and look
Yeah,
at what a cheerful you are. So
touch
just
me.
thank you. Thank you for that work that you're doing in the world. And thank you for being a guest on Wellness by Design today.
Oh, Jane, thank you so much for having me on. And yeah, it's like I know you intimately from having interviewed you myself. And yeah, so much love and respect for what you've done and how you've brought so much of yourself to your journey. And then through that healing journey, forwarding yourself to help others heal as well and wellness. But oh man,
Mm.
thank you. Thank you.
Living on our values. So and to people that are watching or listening, thank you. And you know what, maybe someone needs to hear this, so please share this podcast with them so that they can be inspired to do what they need to do to live with their values. Okay, thanks very much and have a great day, everyone. Bye.